Joseph was a shepherd and a son to Jacob, hated amongst brothers and cherished by his father. I gave to him a vision of lordship, and his favor was marked by a coat of many colors. The son was betrayed for silver and was given over to the palace of another land. I blessed his labor and elevated his leadership. When he fled from evil, he once more was cast into bondage. But my favor did not leave him. Joseph interpreted the dreams of his captors, and he was forsaken. Joseph foretold feast and famine, and by my will it came to pass. And Joseph was once again elevated to a place of high power. When those who wronged Joseph came for help, he hid his identity, and they revered his power. He lorded over them, and shame was poured out upon their heads. They returned with the youngest of Jacob, and Joseph revealed himself to them. In his old age, Jacob blessed the sons of Joseph. Through this life, it was I, the God of Abraham and Isaac, who orchestrated the preservation of the line of Jacob and the life of Joseph.
Well, good morning. We're excited to be able to talk about Joseph. This is going to be a story with lots of twists and turns and some life applications. But before I get started, I have an announcement that I wanted to share. If you have not heard of Project 686, you can Google it. You can ask Ray about it. But if you want to know a way to get connected, Easter was a great introduction to get connected to New Life, and Project 686, I always want to do that backwards, is another great way to get connected. It is hands and feet, the people of God, and the community that are wrapping around families that are doing foster care. And so I went to a really terrible training a while back, and one of the slides on the training said, "Parenting is hard, foster parenting is harder." And I was like, duh, that's why we're here. But they had a point, okay? If you didn't know, my own personal life, we have a foster child, and we had one previously, and we have had ups and downs, and we know families that are taking their hearts and their time and their efforts, and they're raising kids that are not their own so that they can know the love of God. And so if you want to be a part of that, then please contact Ray and see how you can be connected. It can be as easy as bringing a meal. It can be as easy as praying for them, taking them out somewhere, babysitting so that they can go on a date. Let me tell you, my wife and I do not prioritize dating, and because of Project 686, we have to, and it's been great. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we get started on anything else. Please contact Ray. Be a part of the hands and feet of Jesus. So thank you for that. So we're going to go into Joseph. We're continuing our Jesus story. This is the start of Joseph, and I'm not even going to get into the really wild and crazy stuff. Ken said I wasn't allowed, and I didn't think that was very fair. So this is the Sunday he took off, and I had to deal with it. So no, I'm kidding. But if you have your Bible with you, we're going to be in Genesis chapter 37 today, and then I'm going to share some verses in the New Testament. But let me set the stage for where we're at, all right? Joseph is the youngest of 12 boys, all right? Who has boys here? And who knows that boys like to fight? All right. The youngest has nothing on the oldest, right? Okay. But today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about that here. I am the youngest of 5, and I would like to consider myself like a well-rounded individual. But my wife, she said, when I first met you, you've always been mature. You've always just kind of gone for things. Yes, I have some immaturity streaks, but she said, but when you were with your siblings, I had never seen that side of you. It's like you defaulted back to that young, annoying sibling. And that's how it is when we're hanging out. You fall back into those roles. So Joseph is the youngest of 12 brothers, all right? This is also a mixed family because there's 4 moms and 1 dad, all right? So they're living in Canaan, and Joseph is 17 years old at this time. My message today, it's called, That's Not Fair. As a parent, you probably hear that on a daily basis. As an individual, you have probably said those words out of your own lips before. That's not fair, and we're going to get into how life is not fair, right? So we're starting at Genesis 37, verse 2. And this is what it says. This is the account of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often tended his father's flocks. He worked for his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing. All right, so Jacob was a rancher. He was out tending flocks, and his sons were helping take care of things. This is the same Jacob from Jacob and Esau. And so his sons were taking care of the flocks. What was Joseph doing? He sometimes went out and he helped take care of the flocks, but while he was out there, he would spy. There's always a favorite, and there's always a mama's boy and a daddy's girl, right? And so this is a daddy's boy right here, and he's going, we don't know. It says that bad things. We don't know what he was reporting, but we know that he was reporting. He was snitching on his older brothers. And so, hey, Dad, they did this. Could you believe that they did this time? Hey, Dad, you told them to go over here, and they went over there instead. Hey, Dad, they said this about you. All right? So you can imagine how siblings rival. And here's Joseph. He's not going to be in the good graces of his brothers by reporting these bad things. So, friction is the key word here. Friction is the word that defines this family. And the definition of friction is it opposes relative motion between surfaces in contact. So, how many of you have ever had friction with your family? Or with coworkers? Don't raise your hand, okay? Unless they're not here in this room, then go for it. So, you have motion and you're getting going, and all of a sudden you skid to a stop because of friction. And so they have some motion going on in their lives, and friction is causing some bad things to happen. In verse 3, it says this: Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children, because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. This is the famous coat. Okay, it's the coat of many colors. All we know about this coat is that it put him in a position of honor. And let me tell you, as the youngest brother, he shouldn't have any honor. The oldest brother should have had that back in the day, and he was just a whimpering fool. But yet the dad had placed him on a pedestal above his brothers. It was special. It was made for Joseph to stand out, but it caused friction. It caused tension. And there's a reason beyond just this jacket that we're going to get into. But Jacob loved Joseph the most. Why? It says this: he was born to him in his old age. That's all they give us. What do we know about Joseph's mom? Joseph's mom was Rachel. all right? And Rachel was the Rachel that Jacob wanted to marry all along. And what happened? Rachel's dad, Jacob, the trickster, got tricked, okay? And so he worked to be able to marry Rachel, and all of a sudden, the dad, the father-in-law, said, hey, here's my daughter Leah. And he ends up being tricked into marrying Leah. And then he has to work for 7 years to be able to marry Rachel. So there's a little bit of backstory that we need to understand in here that's not just taking place with the brothers, okay? What was happening with Leah and Rachel? Leah was jealous that Jacob loved Rachel and worked hard to be able to have her as a wife. Rachel got jealous because Leah could bear children and Rachel couldn't. So we have this jealousy streak going on in this family that's permeating before the brothers are even here along. And then they get into this bidding war with Bilhah and Zilpah, because those are the servants of Rachel and Leah. And they're like, well, because you had a son, then I'm going to give Jacob, my servant, and then I'm going to get a son through that. Sounds like a Isaac and Ishmael thing going on here, right? Was that God's plan to have Ishmael? No, but God honored it because of the promise. Was God's plan for Jacob to have 4 wives? No, but God had already promised a covenant beforehand with Abraham and his descendants. So here we are, and we have this messy relationship going on. Whose family is perfect? Raise your hand. Hey, you in the back, you raise your hand that you had issues with friction with families. So can't say they're perfect and say that you have friction. People will ask, when did families start having issues? When did this start occurring with it? Families were separating and there was all this stuff going on. It happened in the first family. You got Cain and Abel, the sons of Adam and Eve, and one kills the other. Why did they kill him? Over jealousy. That leads me to my first point. Jealousy creates dysfunction. And there's this jealous streak that's running through this family, and it's running rampant. So, like I said, you have Rachel and Leah. They have this jealousy going on. The first family had jealousy about trying to win the father's approval through their ways of worship. And Cain got mad that Abel was put, and guess what? Abel was also the youngest. Was put in this position of honor by God, and so he kills his own brother. We have Joseph, the youngest of 12, who's getting a place of honor. And does it say what Joseph did? Was Joseph doing anything to deserve honor? Cain and Abel, you could say, well, Abel honored God with his worship. But Joseph, it doesn't say he did anything. In fact, he's kind of not a great guy in this moment here because he's snitching on his brothers. He's just trying to be in good graces with his dad, and he gets it. He gets that good grace with his dad. He has that connection, all because he was born to Jacob in his old age. That was his devotion to his dad. Jacob was guilty of favoritism. Ooh, we don't like to say that word. Who has a favorite? Don't raise your hand. All right. Now, you might not think you have a favorite, but your kids know who to go to when they want a certain thing, okay? All right? They know who to go to depending on the situation if they're going to approach mom or dad, because they're very observant about how this happens and what it happened with Jacob and Esau. Jacob knew who to go to trick his dad, right? And here he is showing favoritism after a family had already done that. So this caused problems. In Genesis 37:4, it says, "But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him." They couldn't even find anything nice to say about Joseph because, well, you already have all the honor with dad. Why should I, right? What a mess! This is a screwed up family. Who knows that you can come out of a screwed up family and you can come out on the other side pretty good, right? But here's Jacob showing favoritism. Here's Joseph narking on his brothers, the little tattletale bragging to them and narking on them. And here's the brothers that are completely jealous. Where did they see that jealousy from? Their moms. It happened all the time. So here's my question. Who has a right? Who's right in this situation? Is Jacob right? Is Joseph right? Are his brothers right to feel this way? Are they all right? Are they all wrong? Who's to blame? And are their feelings justified? Well, if you were in that situation, you would say, my feelings are justified, right? If I was in that situation, if I was one of the brothers, I would have a really hard time combating the jealousy I would have over Joseph. Jealousy creates dysfunction. That goes back to the fall of man. Dysfunction, not functioning the way God designed. This family is not functioning the way God designed. And these are good questions to have because they happen in families all over. They happen in your family. They've happened in my family. They happen in church families. They happen at the workplace. You have these feelings. And here's the thing. The brothers, they could say they had a right to be jealous. It wasn't just a coat. It wasn't just the tattletaling. There was other stuff that had happened. If you go back to when Jacob was called to come back home and he was going to meet Esau, what happened? Esau had 400 men that were coming out, and Jacob's going, oh no. I knew this day was going to happen. This is why I avoided coming home. Esau is out to kill me and my family, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be strategic about this. I'll place Bilhah and Zilpah and their sons in front. Then I'll place Leah and her sons. Then I'll place Rachel and Joseph in the back. I bet that was probably the only time those other 11 brothers were put in front of Joseph, were put first. But it wasn't in a good way. Because what was going to happen if that was Esau's intention? They were going to die, and he was hoping that his favorite, Joseph, could get away. He put Joseph behind Rachel. He loved him so much. And he was hoping he could get away. His brothers saw this favoritism their entire life. And they got to feel like, man, what did we do wrong? He was just born to him in his old age? So, this is some homework for you this week. Joseph had some dreams, and if you haven't heard of Joseph's dreams, then you can read about them, and we don't have time to get into all of his dreams, but in verses 5 through 11, you can read about Joseph's dreams. But here's the premise of his dreams. His dreams interpreted were saying that all of his family, his mom and dad and brothers, were going to bow down to him. And so Joseph goes and tells his brothers about this. How do you think that went? Hey guys, just thought I'd let you know. You're going to bow down to me. So, I don't know. That's what I dreamed. So, in Genesis 37, verse 8, it says this. His brothers responded, so you think you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. It wasn't just because of the dreams. It was also about the way he talked about them. Jealousy is a dangerous state of mind. Jealousy consumes your thinking. When you start to compare, then you start to get jealous, and it creates this dysfunction. Jealousy rages through you. It dominates your thinking. It dominates your thought processes, and you cannot move beyond it. But it doesn't start that way. I think about fishing. I used to fish all the time when I was younger in Minnesota. Okay, land of 10,000 lakes, so it's bound to happen. But in fishing, you have all this prep ahead of time. Jealousy is prepping you ahead of time. It's permeating your thought process, but it's slowly eating away. And you throw your fishing line in the water and you're waiting for that little bit of a nibble, and you're waiting for the bite. You're waiting for the hook to sink in before you can jerk and just start reeling in, right? And if it doesn't happen, you cast again. Jealousy and the enemy of your soul is trying to bait you so that he can take over your thinking and consume your thoughts. Because when your thoughts are consumed on jealousy, they're not consumed on God. The hardest part about jealousy is it's justifiable. You can justify your feelings. Now in today's society, feelings are truth, right? That's not how it should be, but we've justified feelings so much that we've made our feelings be the truth. And we have that permeating through society. Where do you think that came from? You think it just started happening? No. It happened with the family of God, and it's been happening throughout history. And you could see how they could argue their points to be right. But guess what? When jealousy creates dysfunction, dysfunction creates destruction. In James chapter 3, verses 15 and 16, it says, "For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and evil of every kind." Once you have the hook in you and you start to be jealous, you're willing to do whatever it takes. And we're going to get to that with Joseph's brothers, because they were willing to do whatever it took to wipe Joseph off the map. All right? And when we talk about the story of Joseph, you're going to see more and more of that. But it started somewhere, and it didn't just start with the coat, all right? It started with the dysfunction of the family before these guys were even born, and it permeated their entire life. Jealousy only destroys. It destroys relationships. It destroys the person who is jealous. How many of you have made a decision based off of jealousy and you've come to regret it? Almost every single one of us, because every single decision that's made based off of jealousy is from selfish ambition. And this is the underlying problem with our society, is that, this is what I'm going to say, the quest for fairness creates the environment for jealousy. The quest for fairness creates the environment for jealousy. Participation awards, all right? I used to be blessed that I got to be on a team, okay? I remember when I was a kid, there was a cake that we had in first grade, and everybody's like, "I want the piece with the decoration on it." And I was just like, I'm just happy to have cake. You know? I'm just here for the cake. All right? But we have this society, we want everything to be fair, equal. And when fairness is not reached, great tension and friction is created, right? You see it in your family, you see it in society. Hurt feelings emerge and jealousy starts to come out. We yell, or our kids yell, "That's not fair!" And what have your parents told you, or what have you said to your kids? Life's not fair. Turn to your neighbor right next to you and say, "Life's not fair." Okay? Make sure that resonates. Life is not fair. And this is the key. My response when life is not fair determines the condition of my heart. Your response when life isn't fair determines the condition of your heart. We only want it to be fair when it benefits us, right? But if it's reversed, if we have to give up something so that everybody can be equal, that's not fair, because now I have to give up. We have this tendency to react with injustice, or like we've been mistreated, or whatever it is. And so I'm gonna illustrate my marriage, and I asked my wife for pre-approval for this, okay? So my wife got to fly out of state and go visit our friends for 8 days while I was at home with all 4 kids on a holiday. Okay? Now I could say, life's not fair. I could justify feeling frustrated that my wife got to be going out and doing something fun. She got to eat places that I don't get to eat at, probably will never see in my life. And here I am, I'm stuck at home with the kids, right? That's not fair. For 8 days, it was the longest that we've been separated from each other in 16 years of marriage. And I could have easily been bummed out on myself, right? Now I've got you hooked. You're on my side. All right? Boo, my wife, right? Except, I'm not telling you the full story. But that's how we can do it. That's how we can get lied to and deceived in our own feelings and feeling justified to have jealousy in us because we only see one side of it. Now, I was bearing the load of our family, which is the everyday tasks that we do. But my wife flew out because we had very good friends of ours that had tragedy. And my wife was there to be for them. And so she was bearing the burden of others. So I could bear that load so that she could bear the burden. And I wasn't jealous and I wasn't angry because I knew why she was out there. But we could easily turn and twist whatever we want to be the way that we want it to be so that we can be justified. And it could feel unfair in other ways. When you give gifts to your kids, do you try to be fair and equal? My wife does a really good job. I'm just like, hey, they like that, let's buy it. She's like, well, that's going to cost this much, so the other kids should be able to get this much, or they're going to have 12 gifts. Not really, we don't buy 12 gifts for our kids, but so they're going to have 3 gifts, so we got to try to make sure that the other 3 get 3 gifts, or we're going to be able to tie them together so that we can wrap them. And so my wife, she creates this, and why does she do it? So they don't fight. Moms get it. Dads are just like, man, I just saw this, thought of you, it looked cool. That's what Jacob was doing. It was cool. You were born in my old age. I saw this jacket. I wanted to give it to you. Right? Wrong. So kids will pick up on unfairness more than anything, right? They will see it and they will hate it. And that's where we see Joseph and his brothers. And that's what leads to point 3. Love creates self-sacrifice. How do we combat jealousy? You got to have love, and you got to be willing to have self-sacrifice. Why was I okay with my wife leaving? Because I love my wife, and I'm willing to sacrifice for her. The pursuit of fairness that we are trying to instill in our children creates a me first attitude, because otherwise they're going to fight. The pursuit of fairness creates an environment for jealousy, but the attitude of self-sacrifice creates an environment of joy. Do we want everything to be fair so that we don't have to hear the bickering, or do we want our families to have joy because they have self-sacrificed and they love each other? What would you rather have? Yes, the bickering is hard. Yes, it's tough. Do you think God really liked having to deal with the bickering? Do you think God really appreciated what Cain did to Abel, or what Jacob did to Esau, or what Abraham and Sarah did to him with Isaac and Ishmael? He's been dealing with it since day one. And yet we want to be fair because we just can't take it anymore. The best way to teach an attitude of self-sacrifice is to live it. You got to live it. Ephesians 5:2 says, live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. God doesn't want to hear the bickering. He wants the pleasing aroma of your life to fill his nostrils. He wants to breathe it in, because when he breathed out, he breathed life into you. Amen. We have life because of God. It is a state of mind that I want to carry in my life. I don't want to get the promotion because it's fair. I just want to congratulate the person that does. All right? And even if it isn't fair, I want to show joy and self-sacrifice and love, because that's the only way they're going to see Jesus in me, because they're not going to see Jesus if I'm willing to bicker and argue because I didn't get what I wanted. I am okay in my relationships and my marriage self-sacrificing. I want to out-sacrifice my wife, and I don't want to keep score. I don't want to play the game. Hey, I did this for you, honey. So what are you going to do for me? Right? Hey, I did this, so I get to go on that fishing trip. Or I did this, or, the honey-do list, because now we're just trying to match, and we're just trying to keep equal, and we're just trying to keep score. And then the jealousy and the tendency to be justified in our frustration and our anger just spirals us out of control, and we're hooked, instead of just showing a life of self-sacrifice and love. Romans 5:8 says, but God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. Not while we had everything figured out. Not when we were showing love to each other. While we were still messing up, Christ came, because he knew that was the only way. And Christ what? He sacrificed. So here's some ways that you can sacrifice in your life. Try it out. See if it has a bad taste in your mouth. Celebrate the opportunity of others. Yay for you! My attention is on your blessing, not my misfortune. Point the opportunity for others. Hey, I saw this and I thought of you because I know that you would be a really good fit for this. Or, hey, I recognize that you did this. Thank you. Or, did you know? Create the opportunity for others. Celebrate their opportunities. point them out, create an opportunity. How can you show love to somebody? How can you sacrifice? Create an opportunity for them to be lifted up. Joseph didn't do a good job of that. Jacob only did it for one of them, and the brothers stayed jealous the whole time. Be a life speaker. God created us in his image, and in his image he created us. He created us for a purpose. And when God created, he spoke life. So when we are created in his image, what do you think our words can do? They can speak life, or they can speak death. Downs, come on up. Point 4 is this. Self-sacrifice creates life. When we self-sacrifice, we create life. That's what God did for us. In Romans 5:9 it says, and since we have been made right in God's sight by the blood of Christ, he will certainly save us from God's condemnation. Remember when you turned to your neighbor and you said, life's not fair? Turn to him again and say, life's not fair. You think it was fair that Jesus died on the cross? Or do you think it was love and self-sacrifice that created life for us? We couldn't celebrate Easter last week if Jesus hadn't done what he did. He didn't do it to be fair. God's love poured out evenly for us. Oh, you can only have this many wrongs in your life before God is tapped out, because we need to be fair. Thank God that he doesn't keep count. Thank God that Jesus paid the price and it wasn't fair. So when you leave today, remember life's not fair. But it's not about your misfortune. It's not about what you can justify. It is not fair because Jesus paid the price and you didn't have to do anything for it. You are living a Joseph right now. God has paid the price, and all you had to do was be born. And he's already taken care of it. And he already wants to bless you with the riches of his love today. So stop letting the hook sink in. Stop justifying what doesn't feel right and start looking at what Jesus did. Life isn't fair, and I couldn't be more thankful. Because if it was, I'd be the one hanging on the cross. I'd be the one condemned because I deserve nothing else. If you look at the seat back in front of you, there's a Connect card. And it just says, I want to respond to today's message. Maybe you need to respond and you say, I want to give my life to Jesus. Maybe you're struggling with jealousy and you need God to help you. Maybe in your strife for fairness, you need to realize that you need to self-sacrifice. Or maybe you need to stop showing favoritism. Whatever that is today, fill out that Connect card. It doesn't go to waste. We want to pray for you because you're important and you have value and you can create value when you can move on from being bogged down by so many other things. If you could stand up, I want to pray for you now. Jesus, it's not fair, but you love us so much that you were willing to sacrifice, and I am beyond words. Thank you. Thank you for the people in this room Thank you for the people online. Thank you that they get an opportunity to leave here today with a different mindset. Don't allow the enemy, Jesus, do not allow him to sink his teeth any further, to sink the hooks in. There are people here that you are waiting to break free because of the purpose that you have for them. Allow them to see that purpose in your great love for them. We thank you for that, Jesus, in your precious name. Amen. Have a great day, and no, life's not fair. Amen.